Hi, and welcome to the video about topic 3, which is attitudes to variation. So far we've looked at regional and social variation. We're going to look at what are some different attitudes that people have towards these different variations of English. Okay, so culturally, we accept standard Australian English as the superior English. It's the one that we aspire to use in schools, workplaces, universities, corporations, and in the media, as well as in public spheres like in politics and that kind of thing. However, it's easy to find examples of non-standard grammar that are actually functionally better than the standard. So functionally better meaning they actually work better in particular situations. Aboriginal English, for example, distinguishes pronouns far more clearly than standard Australian English. It distinguishes dual plural, so two things or people, from plural, more than two things or people. It also indicates inclusive and exclusive for first person, for example, whether we includes the speaker or not. We would typically consider these features non-standard and, if we're being prescriptive, wrong, but they would be very, very useful for us to have because the standard Australian English doesn't let us distinguish between those things in our pronoun use. Non-standard variations are just as valid forms of communication as the standard is. All dialects also have rules, they just do things differently. So it's not necessarily that something is wrong, it's just that it's different, and you do still have to follow rules within those dialects, even though they might not be the same rules as the standard. Sentences that are non-standard, such as "I done all the cooking myself," are not errors of English itself, but are errors of standard English. Okay, so if you're trying to make that standard, you would say, okay, well, according to the rules of standard English, that's wrong. However, if you're looking at it in the rules of whatever particular dialect or sociolect that sentence belongs to, then it's right, and that's completely fine. Socially, non-standard dialects are often disparaged and devalued, meaning kind of attacked and said that they're not worth anything, simply because they don't have the same prestige or status as the standard dialect. Language continues to act as a badge. It can function as a social disadvantage for many people, and those in different language communities are still discriminated against, both consciously and unconsciously, for using non-standard dialects and non-standard dialects and low status accents. Okay, I want you to pause here, and with the person next to you, or if you're doing this on your own at home, you can just have a bit of a brainstorm. Can you think of a group of people or a particular sociolect in Australia that might be discriminated against because of their language use? You need to choose one and research some of the linguistic features of that variety. Then try and find an example of a prescriptivist attitude towards the use of that variety. Okay, so it doesn't need to be a big research project. I just want you to think of a particular sociolect. If you need to review sociolects, go back to the previous slides where it explains what a sociolect is. And then you need to choose one, try and find some examples of the features of that sociolect, and then try and find an example of someone judging the language use of that sociolect. Give yourself about 15 minutes to do this task, and once you're finished, come back to the slides, to the video, and you can keep going. Okay, so overt and covert prestige we've talked about before. Linguistic features that have overt prestige are those that are recognised by whichever is the culturally dominant group. In English-speaking societies, these are the standard features. The education system often stigmatises other features as undesirable. However, those features may have covert prestige. In other words, they can signal membership within certain subgroups. Using these features can earn the speaker's acceptance and respect from these groups. Speakers of the standard dialect can often be quite tolerant of regional dialects, and they're often seen as quaint, meaning cute, or that's a nice little thing to have. Attitudes towards regional dialects can be positive but quite condescending and patronising. Attitudes to sociolects can be quite hostile. When it comes to social difference, non-standard is often equated to substandard, meaning not as good, and speakers of these varieties are often condemned for their accent, use of slang, and their grammar or lack thereof. Alright, so why do people judge? Are there any accents that you particularly like or dislike? What judgments might you make about people with these accents? So what things can you guess about someone based on the accent that they have? You've got to really investigate and interrogate your own prejudices to do this activity. So try and be as open-minded as you can. I'd recommend that you have a bit of a brainstorm and write this down and then share it with the person next to you. See if you had anything in common or if there's anything that surprised you about what they'd written. Once you're finished, you can continue on. These attitudes typically arise from associations and prejudices. We might think that we judge accent on the basis of pure aesthetics, but typically these sorts of judgments have a much deeper social basis. So you might think, I don't like a Greek accent because I just don't like the sound of it. It's very unlikely that you just don't like the sound of it. Usually you don't like the sound of it because you have an association that is probably negative, and that goes for all accents. Okay, that takes us to the end of the slides on attitudes to variation. So you can, when you're ready, continue on with the next video.